Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Scott Dill and I am Superintendent of Schools for the Poplar Bluff School District. I have been working for the last week and a half or so, recording answers to what are the most often received questions. It started off as a top 10 and then some of the questions kind of grew as we went along. We know that these unprecedented circumstances have created a lot of uncertainty about a lot of things in the world. It is our hope that through this video we answer some of the common questions that are out there. We know we won't be able to address everything, but we're going to try and answer those ones that just keep coming up. Now, I'm obviously working from home these days because of our circumstances, and so if you see me looking back and forth during the video, it's because I have monitors set up so that I can have the information that I need in front of me. Please bear with me as we work through this. I appreciate your patience. I hope that you are safe and well, and I look forward to getting back to school as quickly as we can. Thank you. Our first question is a rather comprehensive one. There's a lot packed in there. It relates to events. So will there be graduation, commencement, prom for the seniors, those other school events, banquets, balls, sports ceremonies, tryouts, honor receptions, kindergarten graduation, early childhood celebration, and enrollments and screenings? Okay, I'll try and unpack as much of that as I can. First of all, graduation. We remain publicly committed. I've talked with my administrators. I've talked with the board about this. Our goal in all of this is to provide as much normal as we can for the students in what is obviously a very abnormal situation. And so we remain committed to trying to have a regular graduation. A lot of that will be determined moving forward by social distancing guidelines and how those are lessened as we move through the end of this process into May and into June. So we'll put a pin in that for now, but we want to have graduation. Same thing with prom. If we can do a regular prom or a facsimile thereof, then that's what we would like to do. A lot of these other events are going to be up to the discretion of the sponsors and the building administrators. I would imagine that we will try and hold a lot of these still because they are very important. But I would suggest reaching out to the building administrators and or the sponsors of these organizations. Couple things on the list, like kindergarten graduation and early childhood celebrations. Those are really more performances than they are ceremonies. I imagine that there will be something scheduled, but it will look a little different because obviously the kids haven't had time to rehearse and get it absolutely perfect for you. And so the last thing on the list were the enrollments and the screenings. And that's specifically like at the early childhood, kindergarten, all that is where we think about a lot of that. Those dates will be scheduled as we move through the summer, and we will be communicating those out. Now, if it's just enrollments at the other buildings, once the social distancing guidelines are relaxed a little bit, then we can get new people enrolled, new students enrolled, we'll transfer records, we'll do all those things that we normally do. I know that doesn't answer everything in that list, but there are still a lot of unknowns at this point. Why aren't we teaching online for actual grades with one-to-one technology so that our students aren't falling so far behind on instruction? This is the crux of the problem for public schools during this coronavirus crisis. I've talked to my peers around the state and around the nation, and most districts are operating exactly as we are, providing support and enrichment during this time. And the reason for it is multivariate, but it really, in our area, it comes down to three things. Infrastructure, access, and equity, and those last two are combined. So the infrastructure piece. If it was as simple as putting a device into all my students' hands and doing school that way, we would have done so already. That wouldn't be a problem. But without broadband internet access, that Chromebook or iPad, whatever the device is, becomes a very expensive paperweight. And so until broadband access is ubiquitous, our ability to do school in a real and meaningful and legal way is nil. And At this time, of course, I think it's important to note that all of our public schools in the state of Missouri are, by order of the governor, closed until the end of the school year. We've been asked to continue to provide educational services and access to meals, but our ability to have school or to accomplish school in a meaningful way is exactly zero at this point. And I hate that because that's our job. But let's talk a little bit further about those last two pieces, that equity and access piece. Our public schools were established with the idea that we open our hearts and our doors every single day to every single student. We meet them where they're at and we take them where they need to be. If during this time of crisis, when we are unable to access the physical school, we are only able to reach those students that have access, then all we're really grading is a student's ability to access the curriculum. And that's not fair. My kids deserve better than that. And so we are doing the best we can during this difficult circumstance to provide supports and to provide access to teachers so that students can continue their learning. But to try and take grades or do anything meaningful like that during this period would be inequitable in the extreme. And so we will continue to do the best we can in these circumstances. And then as we move into the summer school portion, and then as we move into next year, we will certainly try and make up for what we've lost this school year. Okay, how will class or arena scheduling at the high school take place? So that is a junior high and high school, and I've got high school's response here. They tell me that scheduling is already underway. Over 200 of our juniors this year have filled out their course requests for next year. This year's sophomores have just received an email to fill out their request, and all students should be checking their email. They'll be following up with phone calls to anybody who doesn't reply by email to ensure that we get that information. Junior high scheduling information was put out earlier this week and can be found on social media. Forms can be returned at the meal pickup sites, and I think those forms are also available at the meal pickup sites. So that's scheduling. How will third trimester and fourth quarter grades be handled? Okay. How will the break impact GPA class rank at the secondary level? And when can report cards be expected? Okay, there's a lot in that question. Addresses the large grade span. So let's start at the elementary level, those lower levels. With that standards-based grading report card for that third trimester, there is an option to mark NE, or not evaluated. So there may be some of those that are marked because the teachers had already made some progress, or the kids had made progress, I guess, more accurately. But for the most part, that'll be that NE category is what I anticipate. Now, on the other side of it, that also provides the basis for where we need to begin instruction when we pick back up. Those skills were essential when we stopped, and they'll still be essential when we get going again. At middle school and junior high, those students had the opportunity to make up some work, and then the third quarter grade gets carried through to fourth quarter, and that becomes semester grade. And then at high school, third quarter's final grade will be copied in fourth quarter. This will average out and essentially make third quarter grade the semester grade. This will ensure the students get the half credit for their classes instead of a quarter credit. So that is a very fair way to do that. I think that they've been very thoughtful in how they do this. So the next part of that, how will the break impact GPA and class rank? That's high school specific. So they say here that the second semester of the 2019-2020 school year, so our current school year, will not be calculated into GPA or class rank for 2020, 21, 22, or 23 graduates. So because we missed a quarter of the school year, this semester won't be calculated in. Again, I think that's about as fair as that could be done. And then the last bit of this question is, when can report cards be expected? I would anticipate that as we wrap up the fourth quarter, which will end on May 21st, as previously established, that report cards will be available shortly after that by electronic means as we can get them out. and then we'll mail those out as needed. And you should make those inquiries to your building administrators about that specific process, or if you don't receive those grades, obviously we want you to get those. So I think that wraps up that question. Is credit recovery an option for failed classes? Can homework assignments be made up to improve grades? And are dual credit courses still being offered at the high school? Okay, so this is a high school specific question at this point, and I have their responses over here. Missing assignments for the third quarter can be made up to improve the grade. So there's the answer to that one. Is credit recovery an option? If a course cannot be passed by completing missing work, a student can be enrolled in a credit recovery course. Students not passing a course should contact their counselor, their teacher, or their principal by email. Students who are already working on credit recovery course can also work on that at home during this current break. So yes, credit recovery is an option. And our dual credit courses still being offered at the high school? Yes, our dual credit teachers are working with their students to make sure they meet the requirements of the college. Their high school grade will be based on third quarter, as we previously discussed, and their college grade will include the work they do during the wellness break. So there you go. So will the last day of school be the 21st, or will we use makeup days to extend the school year? At this point, the governor's office has given us guidance that the school year will end on our previously established calendar date, which for us is May 21st. And so that is the last day of our current school year. Anything after that date and before the start date for next year will be considered summer school. There are a variety of reasons for this, the way the governor did this. Some of them are statutory, and some of them have to do with the budget cycle, the fiscal year for school districts in the state. But short answer is the school year will end on May 21st, and then we will move into summer school. Is summer school going to be mandatory for all students to stay on grade level and avoid retention? And will it run longer than the month of June to combat regression? That's a good question. There's a lot packed in there. So let's address this in chunks. First of all, is summer school going to be mandatory? Historically, summer school has been mandatory for some students as a condition of promotion. Given that this unplanned break affects all students, requiring them to attend summer school as a consequence doesn't make a lot of sense. And so, no, summer school will not be mandatory. Now, having said that, I think summer school is a fantastic idea, so that you're not out of school for a period of upwards of 5 months. In terms of staying on grade level, yes, obviously summer school would help with that, but we're also addressing that as we prepare for the next school year. We're going to have a very difficult year in schools across the state and across the nation while we attempt to recover the lost opportunities for learning, the opportunities to master those essential standards. And so we are hard at work on making sure that we are prepared to meet kids where they're at and take them where they need to be next year. But again, summer school, not a bad idea for anybody. And then the last part of that, will it run longer than the month of June to combat regression? Regression is a serious issue during a normal summer. Obviously, this is going to be an extended break. As I've talked with my peers around the state, one of the things that we're hoping, obviously, is that we can run normal summer schools during the month of June. However, if social distancing guidelines still prohibit that, we will do the best we can where we are with what we have, which will likely be a virtual option. That will look different from what we've done this spring because, again, because summer school is not mandatory, those students that do elect to participate, we can move to a virtual environment and try and move forward that way. It'll be much more rigorous. And then in terms of July and August, if we have the opportunity, yes, I would like to have some summer school late in the summer as well. I think that anything we can do this summer helps us prepare for the upcoming school year. Okay, next question. How long will the meal service continue? We have a lot of people depending on this. We're serving thousands of meals a day right now. In this current configuration, we'll continue until May 21st, which is our last day of school. And then we will move to a summer school configuration. We don't know exactly what that looks like at this point because those details have not been made available to us. But meal service will continue in one form or fashion through the summer, just like we did last year. Okay, on to the next question. Will refunds be offered for Latch Key and field trips that were planned? Yes, absolutely. Good question. We're working out the details on this now. The principals will be reaching out, establishing those lists, making sure that we have all the correct contact information for everybody. And then that'll come back to central office, and then we will issue those refunds in the form of checks, which is the only way that we can do that. So yes, absolutely, we'll be refunding that money, hopefully sooner rather than later. Okay, last but certainly not least, will there be a designated time when students can pick up belongings such as their gym clothes, band equipment, calculators, chargers, and other school supplies? Also, when can students expect to receive yearbooks? And then how do students return items that belong to the school like library books, Chromebooks? All good questions, and yes, there's going to be designated times for all of that. We're hopeful that at the beginning of May that we may see some lessening of the restrictions in terms of social distancing that will allow us to start to return to normal a little bit. My principals are all working with that date in mind to establish timelines for students to return items, pick up personal belongings, all of those things. And so I would anticipate that you will be hearing from the building administrators regarding those procedures, which will look a little different depending on the building. And so they will be communicating that out. Having talked to my administrators about yearbooks, it looks like everybody will be waiting to the fall to get those. And so we'll publish those dates, probably open houses or shortly thereafter when we get back to school in the fall. And then the last one is kind of wrapped up in the first. How do students return school property? If you like, and I would imagine the building principals will communicate this, but as we return the students' personal belongings, that would be an excellent opportunity to go ahead and return any school property as well. Right now, the advice we're being given by CDC is that when we have those items going either way, it's probably best to leave those alone for a little while. Upwards of a week right now is what they're telling us. And so we will have the students or you as their parents place the items in a bin, and we'll make sure that everything gets inventoried. And then we'll take care of that as we move through this. It's a bit complicated, I admit, but we do have a process in the works, and so I would anticipate hearing from the building administrators. Okay, that will about do it for our question and answer session. I hope that we've been able to address some of the questions that you have. As I stated in the beginning, I know that I won't be able to address everything. Do continue to reach out and ask your specific questions about the uncertainties that you have about the end of the school year. The word unprecedented has been thrown around a lot these last few weeks, but I don't think that any of us have ever lived through anything like this. I certainly wasn't trained for this as a teacher, principal, or superintendent. And so we are all doing the best that we can under very difficult circumstances. I thank you for your patience. I thank you for your continued support. I hope that each one of you stays safe and stays well. And I look forward to the day when we resume normal, when we open the doors of our schools again, and we get back to what we do best. Thank you so much for your time.